Good morning. The land on which we're meeting today once belonged to and was inhabited by the Caddo tribes. It was then inhabited and owned by tribes such as the Creek and Muskogee tribe, the Kiowa tribes, and the Kickapoo tribes. We wish to acknowledge these peoples. We are all responsible for understanding the history of colonization and genocide of Indigenous peoples and commit to learning and building relationships. My name is Stephanie Hudson. I'd like to introduce Chief Gary Batten. He is the 47th chief of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, the third largest tribe in the United States. Oklahoma is a Choctaw word meaning red people. Chief Batten was elected chief by the Choctaw people in 2014. Before that, he served as deputy chief and has served his tribe in many roles, including as deputy director of the Choctaw Nation Housing Authority and as executive director of health and chairman of the Choctaw Nation Business Committee. Chief Batten has represented the Choctaw Nation on numerous boards, including the National Budget Committee for the Indian Health Service, the National Health Service Corps of Advisory Committees, the Tribal Technical Advisory Committee for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and the Thunderbird Youth Academy Foundation Board. Chief Batten received his bachelor's degree in business administration from Southeastern State University in Durant, Oklahoma. Chief Batten's family has continually lived in the Choctaw Nation, and they own restricted Indian land inherited from his ancestors who were original Allottees. On behalf of Oils and the Legal Services Corporation, our deepest thanks to Chief Batten for joining us today. Aho and Yekoki Chokma, Chief Batten.
Well, halito and hello to everybody, and just want to say thank you so much. It's an honor to be a part of the Legal Services Corporation, and it has been a wonderful relationship with Oklahoma Indian Legal Services to provide services to our tribal members. It's a service that is desperately needed for them, and it's been such a huge help for so many of our tribal members, and our relationship just continues to grow and to be better. To meet the needs of our people. And so I just want to say I appreciate that so very much. And just to tell you a little bit about the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma is, we are the third largest tribe. We have about 220,000 tribal members. I can remember back in 1997 that we had around 48,000 tribal members. So we have had a huge growth in the last 2 decades. And so it's been great to see the growth of not only our tribe, but many of our tribes. Our reservation, we're located in the southeastern portion of Oklahoma. So if you can imagine, Arkansas on the eastern side, Texas on the southern side, and then of course there's a river and an old trail that borders up between us and the Creek Nation on the north side, and the trail is borders us and the Chickasaw Nation to our west. And it's interesting, we have 6975, that is our main corridor that takes us through the Choctaw Nation. It's on the western side of the tribe. So as you could tell, that area, we're about an hour and a half from downtown Dallas, where Durant, where our headquarters is located. So the area is doing extremely well on the western side. As we go towards the eastern side, we have so many small communities. It's harder to get delivery of services to them, more rural, more isolated, because we have more mountains, streams. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Of course, I live there, so I love it. And but the downside of it is it takes a lot of cost to get service delivery to them. When I say that, not just from a tribal perspective, but just the growth of the economy. If you try to attract a business, it's hard to locate them in those areas. And so we even though we're doing better than we've ever done before, we still struggle with poverty in those areas. And education is always a critical piece, as well as healthcare. But we're doing all that we can to achieve that. And so, one of the things I think I wanted to just talk about just briefly was just talk about, as I mentioned earlier, just our great relationship with Oklahoma Indian Legal Services and how they have worked with our realty department here at the Choctaw Nation to help our tribal members, because our people were not familiar with probation. They're not familiar with a lot of the dealings, even fee simple property to land that's held in trust, to restricted Indian land. All that they know is that they've owned this land, just like was explained earlier. I still thank the Lord, have still have ownership to my grandmother's original allotment of land. And so, but so many people has lost that through the years, and or there's so many complications because the tribal members, like I said, do not understand that. We're trying to do a better job of educating them, but also it's a family issue. And what I mean by that, so say that I think about my grandfather's property. Whenever he passed, he did not have a will. The family did not want to probate the land, because who was named would it actually go into? And the development of a trust is new to them. All those types of things is really complicated. And but with the help of the Oklahoma Indian Legal Services, now, of course, thank goodness we're past COVID. But before that, when they were unable to go to our community centers, because our people they want that one-on-one, because they're being educated. They want to feel that trust and confidence that they can have in Oklahoma Indian Legal Services to help them get to where they want to go. And as you can imagine, trust has always been an issue in regards to, especially when it comes to dealing with property, because a lot of our tribal members did lose that property. Say that they had an Indian home built, which within the Choctaw Nation, our housing authority is a state established housing authority. And so they had to take the land that was restricted out of restricted status, put into fee simple status. They paid the home off, but then they had to start paying property taxes. So we've tried to educate them about that, but people still lose their homes due to lack of paying for property taxes. They just don't get that concept. So just wanted to, that's some of the issues that we deal with. Also just I always say the crossroads, just because of mental health, and is an issue that we're dealing with. So many of our clients are dealing with that. Of course, again, when you have rural isolation, you have typically drug abuse, and then you have mental health, or you don't know it, sometimes dual diagnosis. But the more that we can try to break those barriers down, and I know it's costly, but it has to be one-on-one. It can't be done through any other type of formal training. It has to be that one-on-one training. And so with that, I just, again, want to say how much I appreciate the relationship that we've had with Oklahoma Indian Legal Services. And then also, we still have, we need representation for landlord-tenant issues. Just, again, a lot of our tribal members don't understand contracts. They believe in handshakes. And so it's hard for them to get past the old time, that the way things were done in regards to your word was your bond, and understand what they're dealing with in regards to landlord tenant contracts and so on. And of course, one of the things that we need assistance with is just contested divorces. Parent paternities are still going on, guardianships, adoptions, and we're doing everything that we can within the Choctaw Nation to make sure that we grow those services so that we can provide that to them. Like I mentioned earlier, just estate planning, just how do they get to the point where they do not lose their property, or for a lot of times people go into nursing homes. And so how do they try to protect the home so that it's sustained for the family, as opposed to being lost after a person maybe have failure to pay at a nursing home, and then the nursing home takes that piece of property. But anyway, I just again, I don't want to dwell on the negative so much, because this has been such a wonderful partnership, and I just appreciate Oklahoma Indian Legal Services and the partnership that we had. I cannot stress how important they are to us, And again, I truly believe that our tribal members have begun to develop that trust relationship with them, that they are seeking their guidance. And so with that, again, I just want to say Yakoki, which is a thank you just to them and for all that you are doing. And just I would leave the floor open to any questions that anybody may have of me.
To hear whether or not Native members residing on reservations are experiencing challenges off the reservation, that is, with off-reservation predatory lenders preying upon people who reside on the reservation. For example, we've been seeing a challenge in Arizona with folks buying mobile homes off the reservation, bringing those mobile homes onto the reservation, but then having to deal with repossession issues. So is that happening in Oklahoma as well?
Well, it does. Again, those people, most of the time, they want to be able to have access to the property. And so that's where we're trying to do our best from a protection from our codes and our law, if you will, to make sure that that doesn't happen. But, we have to do business with people. I mean, people, if they want to make a loan, there's got to be a way that they can have the ability to get the value. And so the most important part is really just education. I don't know if Oklahoma Indian Legal Services and everybody understands it. It's almost like our people have been left out of that. Again, I mentioned estate planning, just land contracts, just the basic things that I think we as people that deals with contracts and so on all the time, we're used to that, but they are not. And so again, I just think anytime that they, whether purchase of a mobile home or just acquisition of a home or removing the restrictions on their property, and so they just need to know what those deliberate trade-offs are when they're facing those issues.
Chief, I was very curious about your comment of how much the population of the tribe has increased in southeast Oklahoma in that 20-year period. Could you explain why there has been such a large increase in the tribal members for your tribe?
I believe the one is I push our history and our culture. In the Choctaw Nation, we do not believe in a blood quantum requirement. I'm not a big fan of the Dawes Roll Commission. I know that that's the only thing that we have. So I've really pushed that if you're even 1/1,000,000th, that you should be proud of your history. No different than if you're Irish, if you're Hispanic. Be proud of where you came from and the people that's led the path before you. And so I think it's that. I do think it's also the other side of it, which I wished it wasn't, but we've been able to deliver more services than ever before. We have 147 different programs. So now we have the ability. Our mission is to provide opportunities for growth and prosperity. So we have 5,000 kids per year go to higher education. We have 5,000 kids that go to career development for things such as HVAC, plumbing, all those types of things. So the opportunities are truly available to them. Of course, we provide health care throughout our reservation. And so I think it's also been that they've seen the tribes been able to rise. Of course, we have a little over, when I started in 1987, we had about 110 employees. Today, we have a little over 12,500. We have about 850 positions that's open right now. And so they're able to see employment opportunities. They're able to see higher education, healthcare, all those types of things. And I think so hopefully between the promotion of our history and culture and the opportunities that's available to them, that's the reason why we've seen the increase in tribal membership.
Chief Batten, thank you so much. We are truly honored to have you join us today. And you so well reminded us that those terms, access to justice, are really about securing people in their homes and securing their health and their families and their education. We're very grateful for your partnership with Oklahoma Indian Legal Services. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Yakoki. And in Choctaw, we say there is no goodbye. So we say Chipisa la Chiki, which is until we meet again. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.